Welcome to jury service. You have been selected to represent the Western Australian community and have a very important role to play as a member of a jury. The jury system, with citizens drawn from throughout our community, plays an essential part in ensuring that everyone receives a fair trial. For around 200 years in this country, men and women like you have served on juries. You all bring with you a wealth of life's experiences to assist in carrying out your role as a juror. I know that you will carry out those duties sincerely and honestly. Thank you for the contribution that you are making to the justice system of our state. I am sure that you will find your experience as a juror to be interesting and rewarding.
The right to trial by jury is an integral part of our justice system. Juries are made up of people chosen at random from the community and brought together to listen to the evidence in a criminal trial. Based on the evidence presented to them, the jury's role is to collectively decide on the guilt or innocence of an accused person.
Well, I made the mistake of whinging to my dad about having to do jury duty, but he was pretty quick to point out that it was a system that works and he had seen the alternatives, so I thought I'd better do the right thing.
I was a bit nervous when I was called. After all, I know nothing about the law. What could I possibly add to a jury?
Initially I thought, what a pain. I only came because I didn't have a good enough excuse not to.
It may sound daunting, even a bit of an inconvenience, but as a jury member, you are playing a valuable role in Western Australia's justice system.
I've worked with hundreds of jurors in the past few years, and I think most people are a little bit nervous at first. But you see, there's no pass or fail. By listening to instructions and using common sense, they usually end up finding it to be quite an interesting experience.
The jury system is intended to provide a fair trial for an accused person. So if you think you might not be able to follow the proceedings because of difficulty in understanding English, an incapacity like defective hearing, or you think you may be biased against someone standing trial, you should tell the jury supervisor during question time at the end of the video.
I suppose one of my major concerns was how long I would be away from work and would it affect my income.
Jurors usually attend court for up to 5 days. However, we are very conscious that you may have responsibilities that could affect your ability to fulfil jury duty over an extended period. If a trial is expected to go beyond 5 days, you'll be told before the trial's jury selection, and the jury supervisor will explain what to do if a longer trial will affect you. Employers are required to continue to pay employees who attend jury duty, so you should have no interruptions to your income. Employers can then apply to be reimbursed for the wages they've paid you during the trial. If you're self-employed, you can also apply to be reimbursed. And even if you're not working, you may be entitled to an attendance fee for the time you serve on a trial. You can get application forms for reimbursement of wages for your employer or yourself if you're self-employed from the jury supervisor at the end of your jury service. Staff at the Sheriff's Office can explain the details of current fees payable and who's eligible. While public sector employees don't receive an attendance fee, they will be paid as normal by their employer for the time they spend on a jury. And like all jurors, they can request a certificate of attendance. It's vitally important that you are punctual and get to the court on time. In fact, people who fail to show up as directed can be fined.
I nearly blew it on the first day. The traffic was bumper to bumper, and then I couldn't find a parking spot. It was the train for me from then on. It made it a lot less stressful.
For city-based trials, you may find it easier to come to court by public transport rather than driving your own car. This way, you don't have to worry about parking. And besides, everybody is reimbursed the cost of fares to and from court. Depending on the number of trials scheduled, you might not be selected for a jury straight away. However, unless you are advised otherwise, you will need to report to the jury assembly room each day.
Just turn around the right way. Thank you very much. Just go through and take a seat.
In the jury assembly room, groups of people will be randomly selected by ballot.
244.
Jurors are always referred to by a number instead of their name. It's not very personal, but it does help you to remain anonymous.
Being called a number was a bit strange at first, but it was the same for all of us, and you soon get used to it.
Once selected, a jury officer will escort each group to one of the courtrooms.
Your jury officer will stay with you throughout the trial, and you can talk to us if you have any concerns or queries about your jury service.
While in the courtroom, your mobile phone must be switched off. Making or receiving phone calls or text messages is not permitted in court. When you retire to consider your verdict, phones or other electronic devices such as cameras and tape and video recorders will be collected by your jury officer.
The jury officer was very supportive, but I was a bit worried that the questions I asked were a bit stupid. But she said to me, the ones that you don't ask are the stupid ones.
Please keep in mind, though, that the jury officer can't discuss anything to do with the actual trial. If you have any questions about the trial during deliberation, they should always be presented in writing by your foreperson through the jury officer to the judge.
Thank you very much.
The courtrooms used for criminal trials are all similar in layout. Initially, you'll sit at the back of the court until a second ballot has been conducted to select the jury.
All right.
When the judge is about to enter, the orderly will call for silence. You must stand up and, as a mark of respect for the court, bow and remain standing until the judge is seated. The accused will be in the dock, and the clerk of arraigns will read the charge.
You unlawfully did grievous bodily harm to
Sometimes
Paul
an
John
accused
Brown.
person decides to plead guilty before the start of the trial. If this happens, a jury is not required, and the judge will dismiss the jurors who will return to the jury assembly room. However, in most cases, the accused will plead not guilty and the trial will begin.
How say you? Are you guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Madam Sheriff's Officer, will you deliver the precept and panel?
It was really formal, but then it's serious business. I think the ceremonial side of it sort of helps reinforce that.
So as they come to be
The
sworn,
clerk of
and before
arraigns
they are
will
sworn,
begin
and
to
you shall
call
be
juror
heard.
numbers.
Members of the jury, answer to your number by taking the jury box as your number is called. Number 26.
If your number is called first, you stand up, walk towards the jury box and sit in the first seat in the front row. The next person to be called will sit beside the first juror, and so on.
It gave me a bit of a jolt when he started calling out the juror numbers, particularly when he called mine out first. I thought to myself, there's no backing out now.
Once all the seats in the front row have been filled, the next juror called takes the seat in the back row directly behind the first juror, with subsequent jurors filling the remaining seats. Up to 18 people can be impanelled as jurors.
Actually, by this stage, I was thinking I'd be really disappointed if my number didn't come up.
Sometimes, during the ballot, a juror will be challenged by either the prosecution or the defence counsel before being sworn in.
Challenge.
If you are challenged, you must return to a seat at the back of the courtroom. No explanation will be given for the challenge, and it shouldn't cause you any concern. It simply means that you're not required for that particular trial.
Number 305.
If you find that you know any of the people involved in the trial, you will need to bring this to the attention of the court by advising the judge before entering the jury box. Please don't be afraid to speak up.
Your Honour, I'm friends with one of the witnesses.
Yes, you may stand aside.
If you are challenged after taking a seat in the juror's box, another juror will be called. You will leave the jury box, they will take your seat, and the other jurors remain in their original seats.
Members of the jury,
When
your
the jury
number is
has been
called,
chosen,
please stand,
the Clerk of
take the
Arraigns
Bible
will
and
ask
card and
each
read
of you
aloud the
in
oath.
turn
If
to
you
take the
wish to
Bible
take
in your
the oath,
right
you may
hand
read aloud
and
the
read the oath aloud.
the oath. If
Don't
you don't
read
wish
it
to
until
take
you
the
are
oath,
told
may
to.
read aloud the
If you
affirmation.
wish, you may make an affirmation or an oath according to any other faith.
I swear by Almighty God to give a true verdict according to the evidence upon the issues to be tried by me.
If you would prefer to take an affirmation rather than the oath, you should tell your jury officer.
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will give a true verdict according to the evidence upon the issues to be tried by me.
After each juror has been sworn in, the Clerk of Arraigns will read the charges to you and then state,
You are the jurors appointed according to law to say whether he is guilty or not guilty. It is your duty, therefore, to hearken to the evidence and to say whether he is guilty or not guilty. Members of the jury, choose your foreperson, please.
before you move from the courtroom to the jury room to choose a foreperson, the judge may talk about how the trial will proceed. The foreperson is the spokesperson for the jury. Once the foreperson is elected, you'll return to the courtroom and the foreperson will take the first seat in the jury box, changing places with the person originally in that seat, although sometimes this process can occur later in the trial.
Why did they elect me as foreperson? Not sure really. A couple of us said we were happy to take it on and there was a show of hands.
Selecting the foreperson was pretty easy, really. Just needed someone who looked calm and confident and was prepared to do it.
If you've not been selected as a member of the jury, you'll be discharged or given instructions about when to come back. If you were discharged during the day, you should be aware that your employer can only claim reimbursement for wages paid to you for the time you're in court. So it makes sense to return to work to ensure that your normal pay is maintained. The trial begins with an address by the prosecutor, followed sometimes by defence counsel, and then the calling of evidence. If the judge believes that, because of the nature of the trial, it may be necessary for you to take notes as the evidence is presented, you'll be instructed accordingly. As a juror, it's important that you are free from outside influences, so you must not talk about the trial to anyone but your fellow jurors. Even then, you must take care not to be overheard. After all the evidence has been heard, the prosecutor and defence counsels will address you about their respective cases. The trial judge will then sum up and instruct you on the law and how it applies to this particular trial. At this stage, if there are more than 12 jurors, another ballot will be conducted to reduce the size of the jury to 12. However, the foreperson is not included in this ballot. The judge will then direct you to the jury room to consider your verdict. When you've reached it, the foreperson tells your jury officer, the court reconvenes, and you are all brought back to deliver the verdict.
Members of the jury, are you agreed
When the
upon your
Clerk of
verdict?
Arraigns asks for your verdict, the jury is asked.
How say you? Is the accused guilty or not guilty?
The foreperson delivers it.
Is that the unanimous verdict of you all?
At the conclusion
Thank you
of the
for your
trial,
attendance
the
today.
judge will
You're
discharge
welcome
you,
to go.
but you may be required to go back into the ballot for other trials commencing later in the same week. Jury duty can be a rewarding experience. It gives you an opportunity to participate directly in criminal trials and to play an important role in the justice process.
Well, don't tell Dad, but it was quite a rewarding experience. Actually, I'm glad he talked me into it.
Well, I did my bit for the community, and I'm sure we made the right decision. I understand and appreciate the process a lot more than before I started.
Interesting, isn't it? Along with 11 other people, I've just been part of a decision-making process that is central to our system of justice. May never see any of them ever again, but it was good to be part of something so important.
Jury duty is an essential community service, and we thank you in advance for your participation. It's a serious business, but we hope you'll find it a satisfying one. Don't forget though, If you have any questions or concerns, ask us. We're here to help.